Hello and welcome to Media Monitor on the SABC News Channel, independent and impartial. Now this of course is where we take a look at the inside the world of the media, analysing the trends, the issues and the reporting of some of the week's top stories. I'm Peter Ndoro. This is what's coming up on the show this week. Well, we'll be taking a look at what the role of a media spokesperson is. So we'll be talking to past journalists who've taken that career shift from journalism to being a spokesperson. The Egyptian government this week jailed 6 women with millions of followers on Instagram and TikTok for what they call violating family values. In our News and History feature this week, we take you back to 1996. It was a special year. I will remind you why. So that's the show today, but remember you can engage with us on social media using our Twitter handle, #SABC Media Monitor, and also share your views on WhatsApp. And the number to dial or to send your messages or send your video messages as well is 065 862 4548. That's 065 862 4548. We'd love to hear from you, so please send us your messages. Before we get into our highlighted stories on the program though, let's first take a look at what's on the front pages of our Sunday newspapers today. And we begin with the Sunday Times, and the Sunday Times headline is COVID-19 rips the ANC apart, and this talks to a story that they're running saying that tensions between party President Cyril Ramaphosa and Secretary General Ace Magashule flared into the open at the ANC's National Executive Committee meeting this weekend, with a flashpoint being the rampant patronage in PPE supply contracts and how to deal with the allegations levelled against some of the party's leaders. The City Press is leading with the ANC's Integrity Committee report that has found that David Masondo should step down as Deputy Finance Minister after it's alleged that he used his position to get the Hawks to arrest a woman. The Sunday Independent, that continues with its expose on the Gauteng Health Department's dealings with the Royal Batra Projects, a company owned by the husband of the presidential spokesperson, who this past week said that he never got paid for the PPEs delivered. However, the paper says that DICO was paid 80 million rand through a company called Ledla Structural Development. So a front company, and 12 payments apparently he got. The Sunday Tribune is also running the same story. Royal Batra Projects, 80 million rand they were paid in 12 tranches. But another story on this front page that grabbed my attention points to Inanda, north of Durban, being regarded as South Africa's murder capital for the 4th year running. But get this, it's also now, according to the police minister's annual crime statistics, also the place where the highest number of rapes in the country took place last year. And the Sunday World is leading with the story of a former cabinet minister alleging that his wife is being investigated for conspiracy to murder her husband. Apparently, the former minister approached the police in June with claims that his wife had hired assassins to try and kill him. All right, so that's your papers, and we're going to take a closer look at those later on in the program. But first, let's take a look at some of the trending topics on social media, because a lot of you, that's where you get your news anyway. So this is what's the usual suspects at the top. The Sacred Space, that's Tumi Ngaveni on Metro FM. Sacred Space, very popular. Major Daughter, that's another gospel Christian related item. And I'm always amazed at how products like Nikon end up tweeting, but I suspect that there's a marketing team behind that generate enough tweets to make it happen. But the one that really grabbed my attention is this one, Pete Rampedi. Now, this guy is being celebrated now as the hero because he's been through the wars. Sometimes he's villain, but at the moment he really is being appreciated. People talking about him as a journalist that's fighting the good fight. And what it is that they said that Pete Rampedi and his team have done a great job exposing the DICO corruption here. We need media diversity in this country, independent media. invariably elicits polarized views, but we need to give credit where it's due. Keep hitting hard, guys. Let's learn more about our taxes. So this is generally the message that's coming through. Pete Rampedi, as I said, he's really been through the wars. At one time villain, but now people are saying that he's the hero. Again here, remember when the media tried to destroy Pete Rampedi and Mzilikazi wa Africa, especially their former employer Sunday Times? Many of us thought that Pete Rampedi was down and out, but he's come back stronger, even dealing with his detractors one by one whilst doing what he's good at. So there you go, getting praise. Generally people saying that he's doing a great job and he's working hard at making things happen. There you go, Pete Rampedi is relentless. And so Pete Rampedi, the man of the moment at the moment, South African journalism light still shining thanks to Pete Rampedi. Black Africans are behind you, others will join you later. All right, so that's one of the leading trends on social media as of a short while ago. All right, all of that still to come. Stay with us. Now, you've seen them for many years on your television screens, your radio news channels, and also even read their pieces in print. And you've learned to love them as they took their places on the front line of journalism, often putting themselves at odds with many government officials. So the question is, what happens when they cross the line, as it were, to the other side and become the spokespersons of these officials that they once grilled with tough questions in trying to bring them to account? Well, today we'll be speaking to former journalists about how that transition has been for them and has changed things for them, especially with their former colleagues. But first, we took to the streets to find out what your thoughts are on journalists transitioning into being spokespersons.
Natural for journalists to become spokespersons, considering the environment they come from. So you're from an environment where there's laws, regulations on what can be posted, what can be printed, what can go on air. And so for you, it's always about research and facts. Whereas in the environment all around them is changing constantly. Think of it as Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. People are posting their opinions, their feelings about brands, about social issues. And so from that perspective, it's like everything else is changing. And so it comes naturally to adopt and adapt to the thing closest to the environments they've been working in.
Usually journalists are watchdogs against the abuse of power or corruption, no matter where it originates. So it's quite questionable when you hear that a journalist has been appointed as a spokesperson for the government, because, I mean, you firstly question if they're going to give us the right information, because one way or another that information is going to be controlled by the government. So when a journalist takes up a job like that, we usually think that it's probably because of money.
We are always too quick to criticize journalists who leave their jobs to work as spokespersons in different departments of the government. The argument always lies in their impartiality. Why work with the government when you were the ones defaming it? In journalism, objectivity is the main attribute, being uncensored and unbiased. But switching from one job or one field to another should be allowed.
Spokespeople that work for the government communicate plans, programs, and politics. They try by all means to portray a positive image even in difficult times. So in that case, I think they're being controlled indirectly because they're the voice of the government.
Well, to tell us their story, I'm now joined by Pagamile Hlubi Majola, who's the acting national spokesperson at NUMSA, and also Smongile Mkandi-Mpolweni, who's now the Mpumalanga Premier's spokesperson. Ladies, thanks very much for joining me. Welcome to the program. And it's interesting to see you now on the other side of the game between journalists and spokespeople. How has been the transition for you? Let's start with you, Smongile.
Good morning, Peter, and good morning to the viewers, and thanks for having me. The transition has been a learning curve. it's exciting because it's a whole new territory, and you get to learn a lot of things that you didn't know from the other side, things of protocol. What is protocol? You can't do this, you can't do that, and how things are done sometimes. It's actually a learning curve, and I'm enjoying it, I must say.
And what about you, Pagamile? You really have taken this job on. We've seen your voice grow as the spokesperson now. And I just wonder what the transition was like for you from normally writing about these people to suddenly being these people.
Good morning, Peter, and good morning to your viewers. And thank you so much for having me. Well, it has really been a very interesting journey. I think when I was a journalist, at the time when I was a journalist at ENCA, if you had asked me at that time, would I be here right now doing what I'm doing today? The answer probably would be no. I wouldn't have expected that this is where I am. But at the same time, I think for me, the transition has in some ways been a lot easier because I think a lot of people know my history in the media, particularly my battles in the workplace with my previous employer and issues of racism and patriarchy that we raised there. So transitioning from being a journalist whose job it is to tell the news and to being the spokesperson of the biggest trade union in South Africa representing the working class and their families, I think for me in some ways has been easier because it's just an extension of the work that I was doing when I was a journalist. Right. I'm able to utilize my skill to amplify the voices of the working class.
Okay, so the transition has been easier because you were passionate about those issues anyway, even as a journalist. Okay, so one of the things that has always been a challenge over time is this relationship between spokespeople and journalists. Has that changed for you now that you are that person? What was it like when you were busy trying to get stuff out of the spokesperson before, and now that you're the spokesperson, are you kinder to journalists or have you taken on that role?
Well, before I was on the other side, which is a comfort zone, I must tell you, because you just ask for things, and if you don't get it, you tell them that my deadline is this time. And now I get told of a deadline. And somehow, journalists don't understand that as a spokesperson, you don't have the information at hand or on your desk. You have to go and get that person from that particular department, and that person has to talk to the other person who actually deals with the matter. And you can't release the information that is not accurate or that is not double-checked. It has to go through processes. So what I've done, because I understand where they're coming from, and when I got to the other side, I got to understand how these things works. The information is not there immediately. You would be looking for information from a certain director from this department, and that director is locked up in a meeting from 8 a.m. until 5. So when you finally get hold of that person, then that person is like, okay, I was out of the office in a meeting. I just stepped out now. I will call someone at the office to check if they're still there. So you might not get the information at the same time. So I always advise journalists that please give me time. When you want something, if you know that your story is for Wednesday, talk to me on Sunday. I'm available. Just say, Sibongile, I'm working on this story. I need 1, 2, 3. I will send you the formal question and whatever on email during working hours so that I can start preparing that person as well so that we don't miss your deadline. And what I always do is from the person that I need information from, I will tell them to give me, I will put the deadline forward. If they say the journalist says the deadline is on Wednesday, I will say it's on Tuesday so that the information works faster. But that doesn't always work because the journalist will call you today and saying that the story is for today. And I think that's where sometimes we sort of then have those fallouts with journalists. But so far, I must say, the journalists that I've worked with, they have been very supportive, understanding, because I always tell them that, guys, no. I've been there. I know exactly how it
so
works and how it works.
We can't lie to
so we must work together, I know what deadline means, and this is what I'm going to give you at this time.
All right. So here's a question for both of you, and I don't know how you feel about it, but do you sometimes feel a little bit like you might have sold out? Because on the one hand, you were busy trying to get through the spin doctoring that often these spokespeople do and stories that they give journalists, but now you are the spin doctors, inverted commas. Pakamile?
Well, I think it's also about, that it's a part of the challenges of the differences in the role. For me personally, my job really is to make sure that NUMSA members and their issues and their struggles are being communicated across all platforms. So perhaps there isn't, I don't have that challenge to that extent, because it's something that I am very passionate about anyway. And I've immersed myself in that work. I believe that my job is not just to be a spokesperson, but to actually amplify that struggle with utilizing all the skills that I know. So I think it's, as I said, I think for me it's been a little bit easier. I don't see it as selling out because it's a reflection of my own core values.
Yeah, okay, and I think that that's important. So talking about values, Sibongile, and I just wonder, you don't want to tell us everything, but as a journalist, you want to find out everything. Has that been a struggle for you in withholding things to protect your principle, where before, as a journalist, you wanted the whole story?
Well, with me, I wouldn't say it's. I don't regret the decision, Peter.
Yeah.
And my principal is one person who stands for the truth, and she always says, "The truth first, and the truth shall set you free." That's her motto. So I haven't been in a situation where we must hide things. And even when a media inquiry comes in, if I'm with her and I say, okay, there's this publications that wants this, and then she will say, answer them, give them the information they need so that you get over and done with. But you must always tell the truth, because these things have a way of coming back to you. So it has been easy for me in that way, because I work with a very transparent boss who stands for the truth and at all times wants the truth to be out, even if it's bad or if it's good. But she will always say, you know what, give the people the truth, and then the truth shall set you free. Because at the end of the day, it will come back, and when they ask you, you won't be able to keep up the lie, because you would have forgotten some of the lies that you have told at the beginning. But always tell the truth. And so for me, it has been easy in that way. And people talk about us selling out, but I think they must understand that it's also part of our growth as journalists.
Absolutely.
I've been a journalist for almost 15 years. And while I was hopping from all these publications, ENCA, your Daily Dispatch, and SABC, I've always been a junior reporter. There was no growth for all these 15 years.
Right.
You've always been labeled as a junior reporter. And we know how the newsrooms are run and how unfair that process is. So at some point, you have to look up for yourself.
And develop, absolutely. We're running out of time. We're running out of time. So Pakamile, very quickly, I'm just wondering, we see journalists, not just here in South Africa, but around the world, often being brought in as spokespeople. What is it, do you think, about journalists that make good spokespersons?
I think the best spokespeople are the ones who are true to themselves and don't sell out their values. Don't sell out your values. Do a good job. And the best job that you can do is to represent yourself and represent your organization. And if your organization starts to falter and starts to deviate and lines are crossed, don't be willing to put your own reputation on the line. Because at the end of the day, you build that reputation and it means something, and it should mean something to you. And that you are part of that organization should actually add to it. For me, it's really just that simple.
All right, ladies, We miss you terribly in the world of media, but you're doing great jobs where you are. Thank you so much indeed for giving us your time. And when we call you for a quote, please answer the phone. Thanks so much. Take care. That's Pagamile Hlubi-Majola and Smogile Mkandi Mpolweni speaking to us about their transitions from being journalists to becoming spokespeople. And they're both doing great jobs at the moment. And we do miss them and the work that they were doing for us in the media. All right, so we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have more for you right here on Media Monitor. Stay with us.
Chucky, pass me the dingus. Chucky!
Sorry, Donnie, which dingus?
That dingus, man.
Is it now the dingus or the dingus?
The dingus. Dankie. Ouders. Chucky, stop it.
Sorry, Donnie.
4 months ago, South Africa seemed well poised to deal with what was ravaging countries around the world.
The lockdown has come at a huge economic cost for South Africa. Surely we must have achieved something.
We incurred massive economic cost for almost no health prevention and no health treatment benefit.
We started off the lockdown the way we should, and as we've just heard, but I think now the lockdown system has sort of outlived its usefulness.
The country will have to ride out the storm, as its people have been repeatedly told it's in your hands.
Welcome back. You're still watching Media Monitor on the SABC News Channel. And it's time now for us to go back in history. And this week, this feature takes us back to 1996, where South Africa's long-distance runner won Olympic gold medal in the Summer Olympics. And it was his first time, actually, that black South African had won an Olympic gold at the Olympics. It was quite a thing. I remember watching this. It was early in the morning because of where the Olympics were taking place. And he just took off. And we thought he'd run too early. But you know what? He just carried on running and he won. This is how we covered the story.
Africa ended the 1996 Olympic Games in the best way possible when 25-year-old Josiah Tugwane won a gold medal in the men's marathon. Tugwane won the 42-kilometre race through Atlanta's city streets to take South Africa's third gold of the Games. Our final medal tally has been pushed to 5. The coal miner from Witbank is the second South African to win this event at the Olympics. He follows in the footsteps of Kenneth MacArthur, who took gold in the 1912 Stockholm Games. Tugwane is also the first black South African to win an Olympic gold.
Soon after the start of the marathon, it became evident that this could be South Africa's day. From the outset, the green and gold trio of Tugwane, Lawrence Pugh and Gertes were in the leading bunch, dictating the pace in the early stages. The leading group went through the halfway mark in 1 hour, 7 minutes and 50 seconds, a relatively slow time for a class field. But in humid conditions, it was always going to be a tactical rather than a fast race. When Korean Lee Bong-yu tried to break, all 3 South Africans stayed with him. Of the 3 South Africans, the least was expected of the lesser-known Tugwane, but this probably counted in his favour. While the other contenders were watching the better-known Tace and Pugh, it was Tugwane who surged ahead. At the 30-kilometre mark, Tugwane made his move, but the Korean refused to back down, closely watched by the Kenyan Eric Wainaina in third. 6 kilometres later, the 3 medals were decided, but who was going to win gold was still up for grabs. Within sight of the Olympic Stadium, the Korean again attempted to get away, but Tugwane stayed on his shoulder, and with a kilometre to go, the South African took the lead. Entering the stadium, he had opened a 3-second gap, which he maintained through the finishing line to win in 2 hours, 12 minutes and 36 seconds.
This last 400 meters, a fabulously mature, wonderfully courageous, gutsy run from the South African. Josiah Tugwane He's run and won. He's waving his hands in the air. He knows that gold is his. He loves it. We love it. Great run from Josiah Tungwane.
Pugh was the next South African to finish, coming in at 27th, with pace further down the field. But the history made by Tungwane did not go unnoticed. As the first black South African gold medalist ever, he was at the centre of the attention.
I'm happy for all countries, all South Africans. I'm very happy today.
At South African House in downtown Atlanta, Tungwane received a hero's welcome, similar to the one which was bestowed on double gold medalist Penny Haynes. The third gold medal exceeded all expectations.
Undoubtedly, today's termination of the Olympic Games for us was in superb fashion, and Josiah never let us down. He was great.
His achievement comes after a personal setback, which very nearly resulted in him not being in Atlanta at all. Earlier this year, he was shot in the face by car hijackers, but survived the ordeal. Tomorrow morning at 3, the world will be watching when the South African receives his gold medal during the closing ceremony. The ceremony will be televised live by SABC2. David van der Sant, TV News, Atlanta.
Yeah, what a special time that was indeed. Great to see that story once again. Now, more serious stories now. This past week, a court in Somalia sentenced Gubjug, a media group deputy director and journalist Abdiaziz Ahmed Gerbia to 6 months in prison over Facebook posts that were critical of the government's response to the coronavirus pandemic. Gerbia was arrested on the 14th of April 2020 for spreading false news that offended the honor of the president. The journalist was convicted and sentenced on the 29th of July based on a Facebook post that he had made criticizing the government's response to the coronavirus pandemic. Meanwhile, on Wednesday, police in Morocco arrested investigative journalist Omar Radi on charges of espionage and rape, prosecutors said. Radi was called in for questioning for the 10th time since June the 24th and placed in custody. He's being investigated for receiving foreign funding, undermining the external security of the state, and having connections with foreign spies. He's also facing charges of rape following a complaint filed by a young woman. Radi has denied all the allegations. And an Egyptian court on Wednesday jailed the sixth woman in a week over TikTok videos, deeming the clips in which she dances and lip syncs to popular songs to be inciting debauchery. A judicial source said that the sentencing of Mayna Sami to 3 years imprisonment is the latest such ruling against popular female social media users in Egypt over content posed to video sharing app TikTok and Instagram. On Monday, 2 Egyptian social media stars with millions of followers were convicted on charges of violating family values. The 2 women convicted are Haneen Hassam, who's 20, and Mawada El Adam, who's 22, who gained millions of followers for light-hearted videos they posted on TikTok and other platforms that show them dancing, singing, and clowning about. Now, Egypt sits at number 166 in the 2020 World Press Freedom Index of 180 countries. It's incredible to see such stories, people posting their thoughts on social media and getting arrested for family values. I think we take freedom of expression for granted in some countries. Here in South Africa, we're very grateful that we're allowed to say what we'd like to say. But let's spare a thought for our fellow journalists across the continent who have less room to express themselves. Right, so we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to go to Zambia and find out what's in the papers there.
I usually talk to people who saved on their car insurance, but today I'm talking to all of you who haven't. Because if you call Outsurance and they can't quote you less than what you're currently paying, now you can ask them to give you 500 Rand. And if you've been with the same insurer and been claim-free for the past 3 years, tell them to make it a massive 1,500 Rand. Savings or cash, you always get something out. SMS CAR to 44211 or call 08600 60,000 for a quote.
The special rapporteur on the right of everyone to the enjoyment of the highest attainable standard of physical and mental health. Congratulations on your appointment.
It's fantastic. I think to be entrusted and given the responsibility of such a big mandate is something that I don't take lightly. The biggest role as a special rapporteur on health is to advise the UN on the global trends that are emerging. So that work continues.
Right, welcome back. You're watching Media Monitor on the SABC News channel. And for this week's International Editor feature, we head to Zambia, where journalist, producer and media consultant Arthur Sikopo joins us to talk to us a little bit about what the papers are reporting in his native Zambia. He's an award-winning journalist, and Arthur, I'll say good morning to you. Good to have you on the program. Welcome.
Good morning, Peter, and thank you for having me on this particular show.
All right, before you delve into the papers, Sunday papers, I just want to get a sense generally how COVID-19 has been being reported in Zambia. Do you think that as journalists you're telling the story and telling the whole story in a way that serves your citizenry?
Yes, COVID-19 in terms of the media coverage, the journalists I think are doing a good job in terms of telling the public what is obtaining on the ground in terms of with regards to COVID-19 and just how the pandemic is affecting the citizens. So I think journalists are doing quite a good job. Of course, it being a new pandemic where everything about it is quite new. So I think even journalists are sort of adapting to just reporting what is obtaining on the ground and just the facts around COVID-19.
So international reporting watchdogs have been sensing that in parts of the continent and other parts of the world, state voices have been using the COVID-19 pandemic as a vehicle to try and suppress the media. Is that something that you've experienced in Zambia, or have you been free to express yourselves there?
I can say that we are much on a freer note because I think we have not had situations where we are being suppressed in terms of even just getting information about COVID, even just reporting about COVID. Of course, when the pandemic started, like when it hit Zambia somewhere around March, we had incidences of course, the state wanting to just black out certain information. But later on, I think the state realized that I think the people and the public need to know about COVID-19. So this time around, we could have been the Ministry of Health itself organizing those that have suffered from COVID, and of course organizing Zoom meetings with those that are suffering from COVID currently in health facilities. So this time around, I think the whole picture has opened up. The state has sort of like opened up to just try to show the people what is going on, because earlier on, when the pandemic started, the time that they were restricting, talking to patients, they were restricting talking to doctors. People did not have that adequate information, and people did not even, some of them didn't even believe that COVID was there, because those people that were sick at that particular time were being hidden. Doctors that were attending to these people were being restricted to talking to the media, which created this barrier, and that barrier, of course, created thoughts in people's minds that COVID-19 never existed.
All right, and then a general question. When you're critical of government, is government tolerant of such reportage, or do you sometimes feel the pressure from the authorities?
Sorry, Peter, I missed that one.
I was just saying that generally speaking, because we're seeing again across the continent often authorities putting their weight on journalists that are reporting critically of government generally. And I just wonder, in Zambia, do you ever feel any kind of pressure if you are reporting critically against some of the things that government might be doing, or exposing corruption even?
Yes.
All right, it looks like it is frozen a little bit, and I just wonder, Arthur, are you still there? All right, okay, we're busy going to try and get hold of Arthur Sekopa once again, because we want to talk about what's on the front pages of the Sunday newspapers there, but getting a sense at the moment of the state of media and how things are working there. Arthur, just before your picture froze there, I was just asking if being critical against government is something that's difficult to do for journalists in your country.
Yes, being critical against the government has been something that has led to some of course, our colleagues in the media face difficult times. Of course, when one has been critical, one has been reporting very critical against the government, they seem to be faced with a number of challenges. Of course, those are pressures coming from the state, whereby they start investigating this particular person and start pressing certain charges that some people, call to be trumped up charges. We have had situations where, journalists are being told what to do, and of course if you decide to just go against what the authorities say, then you are deemed otherwise, and of course the pressure would mount on you. So like right about now.
All right, okay, it's looking like we're struggling there, unfortunately. We need to in fact, is he there? Arthur, are you still there? All right, okay, we're busy trying to dial him back, having a few challenges with our connections to Zambia at the moment, but we will get back to him. But in a short while, we will be helping look back at the SABC turning 84 today, this week, and so a great milestone for us, and we're going to be taking you through that, getting some voices of people who've been there back in the day, as it were. All of that's still to come. Stay with us.
The storm has arrived in Gauteng, the COVID-19 storm.
At the current rate, we are seeing that we are having a fast increase, and it's something that concerns us.
People are moving around like everything is okay, because the idea that lockdown levels are low.
Swift behavioral change is needed if the spread is to be contained.
It will be very, very helpful if in the meantime what is preventable and what can be managed is also given as much attention as possible.
As the Provincial Command Council in our province, we are making representation to the National Command Council on reinstating some of the harsher stringent measures.
Now, scientists from 32 countries recently wrote an open letter to the WHO and presented evidence revealing smaller floating particles of the virus can actually be inhaled.
Fields of research that are really growing and for which there is some evidence emerging but is not definitive. The evidence needs to be gathered and interpreted, and we continue to support this.
There are many things that we can do now to prevent infections, and by preventing infections we are ultimately preventing the opportunity for someone to advance to severe disease and death.
If you were taking these non-pharmaceutical interventions not serious, this is the time that you need to be very, very serious about wearing masks and also keeping a safe distance.
Right, welcome back. You're watching Media Monitor on a Sunday morning, as we do every week. And we've been trying to get hold of our journalist in Zambia, but we're not having much luck at the moment. But we do have other issues that we want to share with you. And in fact, we're going to now go back in time because we are busy celebrating our birthday here on the SABC. And over 80 years old, we've been broadcasting on radio and, of course, more recently on television as well. Let's catch you up with the story.
More than 8 decades since its first radio broadcast, the SABC is a part of South Africa's soul. Over the past decades, the public broadcaster has evolved from an exclusively broadcast service to a modern multimedia content platform.
SABC has obviously evolved over the decades, and when it was first established in 1936, it was established by an Act of Parliament as a radio service, broadcast service, and it was actually purchased from a private owner. There were 3 existing radio stations. Mm-hmm. That was obviously just pre the war, and as you know that in 1939 the war broke out. So a lot of the broadcasts were also South Africa was supporting the war, the World War II, and quite a lot of the broadcasts were actually propagating the war. In fact, the first broadcasts in African languages, which was Zulu, Xhosa, and I think Sotho, were actually in 1940, in the middle of the war. So it was post the war. Then the radio stations were then established. I think it was 1960 by then that they had African radio stations actually established. But effectively, it emerged as a state-owned broadcaster serving the state.
We've come a long way as the SABC. We've been able to deliver on our mandate, which is to educate, inform, and entertain. And we've done a lot really in transforming the SABC and make SABC truly independent and impartial and fulfill our public mandate without any fear, without any unquestionable or questionable behavior, so to speak.
84 years on, and the SABC has grown from humble beginnings to boast 18 radio stations and a plethora of television and digital platforms. Hasina Gori, SABC News, Johannesburg.
On Trends Travel, we are all about levels, starting up with level 5.
And the whole world went inside and shut their doors. And no one act by people as a whole has felt more like love than this.
This has become our lives. Gloves, masks and hand sanitizers. But it doesn't mean your mask has to be boring.
The Fashion Forward Level 4.
Winter 2021. We're going to be chatting to David Lyle to find out more about his latest collection.
Darling. The Out and About Level 3. Whether it's hiking, a self-drive.
This one is one of the tamed giraffes. It actually likes people. Let me sit too.
Or just cycling.
That's it.
It's a wrap. You will get it right here on your home of adventure.
We live in a new high-tech environment. Because of technology, some of the world's wealthiest people are tech entrepreneurs. Tech is how we play and how we work. For your tech conversation, join me, Phumelele Zondi, on Network every Sunday at 8:30 p.m.
Right, so we're going to start wrapping up the program, and we usually do that by taking a look at what's on the front pages of our local papers here in South Africa. And we're now joined by Shweshwe Qu, who's the station manager at the Voice of Wits. Thanks so much for joining us, Shweshwe. It's been a while.
Thank you, Peter. It has indeed been a while. The pandemic has kept all of us staying at home and keeping safe.
But the media continues, the stories get written, and which Sunday papers grabbed your attention today? Which one did you pick up first?
So I looked at the Sunday Times this morning. COVID-19 rips the ANC apart. And I also looked at the Sunday Independent, and I thought, related but different stories, where in the Sunday paper, in the Sunday Times rather, the focus is the way the ANC has been dealing with the issues around the procurement of PPEs, which has really become a topic since this pandemic has come up. And we're seeing a lot of people raising questions about, can we trust government in spending the resources that we have? And we now get into a point where there seems to be some politically connected, family-related people who are benefiting from these government tenders that are being put out for this protective personal gears.
Do you get a sense that, and this is also something that's come through in the papers, that this is a lot more to do with factional fighting, and that they're using this corruption as a vehicle? Because let's be honest, corruption has been in government for a long, long time.
It's true. You do get a sense that the factions within the ANC are using this as an opportunity to, heighten their fights. But I think it would be a missed opportunity if the ANC fails to then look at itself and introspect, especially when we're coming out of a week where we saw all of those trends on Twitter when the ANC tried to, protect its brand. I think it's not a time to be fighting party politics at this present moment. President Cyril Ramaphosa, as the leader of the country and the leader of the ANC, certainly has to step up. He did make a promise to the nation in his State of the Nation address, I'll call it that, the most recent one, saying that government will deal with the corruption of this PPEs that were reported. And we saw Kusana Digo stepping down because of the allegations of corruption with her husband's company, King Matsigane II. So I think it would really be, it would be quite disappointing if the ANC would rather pursue a political agenda rather than addressing the issue of corruption, which you rightly say has been very entrenched in our government, which has been led by the ANC since the dawn of democracy. I think this means that this provides an opportunity for the party to be able to look at itself and say, times have changed. The Republic, people in the country are looking for accountable leaders, and no one's letting anything go. And I do think that even us as a people, we need to find ways of ensuring that government is accountable, that resources are shared and are used responsibly. So this should be something that we shouldn't let go. It's something that we should definitely be following up on and checking how much has been spent from the budget that was set aside to fight this COVID-19 pandemic, and how much of it was wasted or how much corruption was involved. And in those instances, we need to have very strong law enforcement and justice system that will deal with the issue of corruption. I think we all want to see ourselves getting to a point where corrupt officials or individuals that are corrupt are charged and the law takes its course.
All right. So what other papers did you pick up that grabbed your attention?
It was also the Sunday Independent, which focused mainly on the Gauteng issues around the tenders. And here, it's the Royal Baja Company. And you remember in interviews during the week, King Masigane had said that there hadn't been any payment. Now, the Sunday Independent is saying that actually there was an 80 million payment that was already made. And this was made through a front company, which when they followed up, was not even on the list of the companies that had been awarded a PPE tender. So I think this is a developing story, certainly one that's not going to go away. And we will see as time goes and the investigations go, the SIU is on the case to see how much of corruption, say, was involved in this in procuring of these PPE tenders. I think there is a trend in South Africa that whenever there's a big event or something that's happening, it seems like it's open season for looters and people to go and, just be corrupt. I'd say, you remember even with the 2010 World Cup, after that, jubilant events, we came out and there was so much corruption that had happened. So I think, again, we need to be vigilant as South Africans to say this should not be a time for corrupt government officials and individuals and people in the private sector to be taking advantage of this pandemic that we are going through to enrich themselves.
All right, and he certainly did do the media quite a bit this past week. One question that puzzled me, and I don't think was fully articulated, is he said that he delivered the PPEs, but no payment was made. And that's very odd, because that would mean then that the Gauteng Health Department must give back those PPEs, or is it a donation that he's made to the Gauteng government? You can't just deliver goods, not get paid, and walk away as if nothing happened.
Yes, absolutely. I think, yes, there are questions also in that it's not foreign for a company to deliver services to a government department and not be paid, or be paid after 30 days, 45 days, and so forth. However, I do think that there was a lot of incoherence in the way the questions were answered around the procurement of services from Gauteng Department by the Royal Baja, and the connections the company or the directors of the company has to the MEC's wife. And so I think definitely there's definitely questions that need to be answered in terms of, could this have been graft or nepotism, or was there an undue benefit because of the relations that the Royal Baja company had with the Department of Health in Gauteng.
All right, Shweshwe, we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks so much indeed for joining us. Stay safe, and I look forward to having you back in our studios one day, face to face.
Thank you. I'd absolutely love to be back to you as well, Peter. Thank you.
All right, take care. All right, and that's where we're going to come to the end of today's edition of Media Monitor. Thanks very much indeed for watching. Join us again next week at the same time, and tell your friends to tune in and watch as well. But in the meantime, wash your hands, sanitize them, sanitize your surfaces, social distancing, stay at home as much as you can, but most importantly, please wear a mask. Good night, everyone. Bye-bye.